Hello, it's Robert Miner with Dynamic Traders Group with our trade strategies video for the week beginning February 22nd. This is a video that we do for our Twitter and YouTube followers. It's just a 5 or 10 minutes with one or two markets that potentially have a trade setup coming up in the next week. It's kind of a taste of what we give our subscribers to our DT reports. So if you like what you learn here, check out our DT reports in my book, High Probability Trading Strategies. And by the way, whether you trade the market we talk about or not, the same approach, the same trade strategies, the same analysis that we talk about in these videos, you can apply to any market in any time frame. So they're not just trade alerts, they're also ongoing education for you. So before we get started, one other thing I want to mention. I'm one of the very few trade educators and analysts and trade advisors, however you want to title me, that actually trades successfully. So I'm just bringing this up so that you'll know what I'm teaching you is very practical trade strategies. You can see these are just the last couple of years. Last year had 134.4% return in the Global Cup derivatives trading championship that Robbins Trading Company sponsors. And this year so far, just the first 6 weeks of this year, up 57.6% in my Forex trading account. And you can go to Twitter and look at the profile page. There's the last 3 or 4 or 5 years where I have double to triple digit gains. Now this is real money, real time, real trading. So I show you this, not that these are the kinds of returns you'll necessarily get by any means, but that you're learning stuff with someone who actually trades and trades successfully. And when I say you can apply what you learn in these short videos to any market in any time frame, I mean that. So let's get started and take a look at a potential setup coming up in the next few days. So we're going to take a look at Bitcoin today. And before we go into the details on Bitcoin, and again, even if you don't trade Bitcoin or not interested in Bitcoin, a lot of applications, what we're going to talk about, particularly for the euro and the dollar, it actually goes to any market, any time frame, but the euro and dollar are tied to Bitcoin in various ways. So you might want to take a look at it. By the way, last week we talked about a bond trade, potential bond setup. That trade had not been triggered yet, but I suspect Monday or Tuesday. So you can just look at that video. It'll give you the setup and what to look for. So we haven't had the reversal yet, but I suspect on Monday or Tuesday we're going to have that, and a great multi-week trade. And 2 weeks ago in the video, we talked about gold. The gold trade was just triggered on Friday. So I hope you're taking advantage of that. It was a real high probability, very low capital exposure setup, and it was finally triggered. We always wait once we get into a position for a reversal for this specific trigger to enter the trade that also gives us the particular and protective sell stop. Okay, let's take a look at Bitcoin. So this is GBTC. It's weekly data, and that's an ETF that tracks Bitcoin almost tick for tick. Bitcoin is just crazy to me. I don't really understand any practical value that it has other than to drug dealers and terrorists and hackers at ransom. But be that as it may, it has a high volume and a hell of some trends that it makes. And they tend to really make some good reversals at some good Elliott wave patterns and some good price targets based on Elliott wave patterns. So let's take a look at Bitcoin up through the end of this week. And the reason I'm featuring it this week is we may be getting near a very substantial reversal. Coming up from the March low, boy, this is like textbook. This is textbook Elliott wave stuff. Probably 5-wave advance, and it doesn't look like much on here, does it? Holy smokes, that was 195% advance, and that ain't nothing in just a few months. Then, of course, we had the correction into the October low, a nice ABC wave 2. And then we've had this advance, oh my gosh, look at this, since October low. And I'm looking at this as a just almost an ideal textbook, 1 through 4, and we're in a wave 5, and we're getting near the end of that wave 5. So here's what I think valuable information if you happen to be interested in a Bitcoin. And that number one, this is probably in the final section on this advance, but keep in mind when this top is made, and of course it's going to be made, and I think it's going to be made pretty soon. We'll see when we get to the daily data, but when it's made, a decline should be a correction against the higher time frame bull trend, because this should be just a wave 3. So, however, let's just say it tops here, real close to here. I'll tell you about these price levels in a minute. But a typical correction against a 5-wave trend corrects down to the wave 4. The zone of the wave 4. And usually the extreme is around the extreme of the wave 4. So that's very typical based on Elliott wave. It's also just kind of, I would say, kind of normal and natural, is that you have a correction down to where the prior resistance was, and the correction was made. And so that's real typical. But in this case, that's a heck of a correction. Let's say we topped around 60,000. This is 60, but in Bitcoin itself, it'd be 60,000. Topped around that, and we corrected down into the range of the wave 4. Well, that's around 50 all the way down to 30,000. That's a $20,000 range. 20-point range at GBTC, and it's going to be anywhere from about 20 to 40% decline. So that's a pretty significant decline, and typically it would be at least greater in time or price than any correction within this trend. So it would typically be greater than 1 month in time, and it would oftentimes, it's actually greater in time than in this case, this wave 2, which was 6 weeks. So I would look at it with probably at least 6 to 8 week corrective decline once the top is complete. And then we also look at it as around a 50% retracement typically. And that's going to fall right in the middle of this wave 4, wherever we make the top. More than likely it will anyway. So what are we looking at here on price-wise? Then we'll get down to the daily. So, and this is why I'm featuring Bitcoin at this point in time, and that I hopefully, if you're trading Bitcoin, or for that matter, the dollar or the euro and a lot of other stuff, you should be interested in this. This is 262% alternate price projection by percentage change. So I take the percentage change of what I've got labeled the wave 1, and then the 262% times that from the wave 2 low brings us up to 6105. On Bitcoin, that'd be 61,000. Not too, sounds crazy, not too far above the market of where we're at, about another 8%. For Bitcoin, that ain't nothing. That could be a daily range for that matter. But you should be aware, if Bitcoin does continue to advance, if it reaches around 61,000, that's very significant based on end of wave 3 price target. These were some typical end of wave, I should say end of wave 5 of 3. These were some typical end of wave 5 targets. We've exceeded that, and in a minute you'll see what is typically the maximum end of wave 5 price target. So the thing to do is be aware we're getting near extremes in a pattern, and of course this advance is very typical of the final section of a pattern where we have this speculative panic buying, just the opposite of panic sell-off. It's panic buying, and that's usually the final section. So let's look at the daily. Here's the daily. Here's that 3 and 4 that we're looking at. Came right down to the 50% retracement, 162% external retracement of the last little correction. That's a typical final target zone. And boy, we made that bottom right there. Then we made our daily momentum dual look back bull reversals. So now we've come to a new high. Here we are as of Friday. But right above the market, let's look here, because these are different price relationships, but very significant. This is the 162% external retracement of wave 4. Very typically the maximum target for a wave 5, if again this is a 3 and a 4, which we believe it is. So that's right around 61.14. That basically overlaps that 262% alternate price projection of the higher degree. So within this potential wave 5, if we consider this a 1, 2, and a 3, and a 4, typically the maximum target for a wave 5 is the 100% alternate price projection of the net range of waves 1 through 3 from the wave 4 low. Well, that's at 63.75. So that would typically be the maximum upside for this wave 5 if these are legitimate and a good 1 through 4. And right below that, 61.14 is typically about the maximum of the higher degree wave 5. And right in that same area, 61.05, is typically the maximum for a wave 3, the higher time frame wave 3, at the 262% alternate price projection of the wave 1. So we're not forecasting here, but what I want you to be aware of is from really 3 different time frames. So this is true multiple time frame price analysis, is that the market is reaching extremes to complete wave 5 of wave 5 of wave 3. Now, it's not a forecast, but if it reaches that area, you might be looking for some selling coming into the market. And if it does, whatever sort of reversal signals that you use or whatever would clue you into it's making a top, keep in mind this is potentially a top that would last for several weeks anyway, and could have a decline of 20 or 30% over those few weeks and as much as 2 to 4 months. So just be aware of that. I'm no expert trader in Bitcoin. Frankly, I've never traded it, but I have so many of our report subscribers and also the YouTube followers and Twitter followers ask me about it. I thought I would put it in there and give you the best shot that I have. So around that 61 to 63 level is, be aware that's some pretty significant price target zone, but given the phenomenal rise in this, who knows, it might blow right through it, but I would be aware of it anyway as potentially the limits on the upside. That's it for today. Remember, take a look at last week's video on bonds, because that setup is probably finally going to be made early next week. And 2 weeks ago, you might want to review the setup for gold. That setup was just made Friday, so there's plenty of time to take advantage of that information as well. Well, it's Robert Miner, over and out. Take care, keep healthy. Be back with you next week.